Thank you. We're gathered here again at Penn State University at the Penn Stater, and it's been a hectic year for PAC-TE. We had a very successful TEA in the fall at our new location at the Best Western Conference Center in Harrisburg, where before the conference started, we met with 11 other education-related associations. After that meeting, or during that meeting, I should say, we developed a consensus on 3 specific areas: the narrowing of the curriculum and child development and its impact on child development, assessment and evaluation, and professional development for all educators. We then turned the consensus information over to Jim Nolan, who is seated up here and will tell you a little bit more about the document that was developed, drafted, and then sent out to 27 education-related associations within the state. And this afternoon at 3 o'clock, we're inviting all of you here in this room to attend a media event where we are going to present the document to the media in Pennsylvania. We have one news source coming, the Center Daily Times. We're going to also get that out to all the local newspapers throughout the state. It is our attempt at being proactive rather than reactive. It's an area that PAC-TE has been looking at for a long time, and under Jim's careful hand with his committee, we have developed this document. Also, I'd like to call your attention to our TEA Fall Conference, which is going to be this fall, October 23 to 25, once again at the Best Western in Harrisburg. You're all invited to attend that. It was a phenomenal success last year. We're looking for a better attendance and a better conference this coming year. We have a good many proposals that have been given, and we've been reading them and selecting them, and so we're inviting you to that as well. And finally, we hope you enjoy our conference today. Our keynoter is Dr. Andrea Whitaker, and she is from Stanford University, had an interesting time coming in yesterday, going from San Jose to Denver, to Washington, D.C., to Minneapolis, to Detroit, to Orlando. This lady will do anything for frequent flyer miles. Seriously, she did. She had Jane on pins and needles all yesterday, is, you know, what's happening across the country with the weather. But she did make it last night, and we're glad that she's with us today. I'd now like to turn the proceedings over to Dr. Jim Nolan from Penn State University, who is the chair of our Government Relations Committee. Jim?
Thanks, Jay. My job is to encourage you to stay at the end of the conference today for a press conference. As Jay suggested, under his leadership, PAC-TE convened a meeting of a number of educational organizations across the state in October. The goal was to try to see if we could speak with a unified voice on particular issues so that we would have more impact in terms of advocacy for students and educators across the Commonwealth. As a result of that meeting, we agreed to focus on 3 specific areas. The curriculum and the whole child is one, professional development is the second one, and principles of assessment and evaluation is the third one. You'll find a media release in your packet that has all of those talking points connected to it. To date, 12 organizations across the state have endorsed this set of principles, and we're hoping that we will have more in the near future. So I would encourage you today to stay for the press conference. If you can, it will be at the end of the conference. And again, our goal is to talk about issues that we care about and to try to identify issues on which there is common agreement among educators about the directions we should be taking as a state. So if you can stay, we would really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over now to Fred Savitz, our past president, who will be talking about some important PAC-TE issues.
Thank you, Jim, and welcome everyone. I have 2 very important announcement invitations to make. And the first that I'd like to make as chairperson of the Nominations and Election Committee is critical to the lifeblood and the continuity of our organization, and that is for you to consider nominating or even self-nominating for a position on the board of directors. There have been calls for nominations broadcast through our media, and I encourage all of you to consider the possibility. If not yourself, perhaps a peer. We're approaching a deadline. The deadline for nominations is May 1st, so please consider very seriously, and within the next 2 weeks, I eagerly look forward to receiving nominations for those board of director positions. My second announcement invitation is another very critical consideration for you, and that has to do with our Teacher Educator of the Year. The Teacher Educator of the Year is a member of the organization and is someone who personifies our goal as PAC-TE members, and that goal is excellence in educator preparation. Once again, consider self-nomination or nomination for someone who you think personifies that Teacher Educator of the Year. We don't have that close deadline to meet for that nomination, but again, I do look forward to receiving nominations, and we'll announce our Teacher Educator of the Year at the Teacher Educator Assembly next October. Thank you for your attention, and do enjoy the conference. We have a wonderful, wonderful day ahead of us. I'd like to turn this over to our chairperson of the 2013 Teacher Educator Assembly, Donna Dombeck.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to take a minute to first off draw your attention to those of you who are just so excited to register for the fall conference. You can't wait another minute. There is a registration form in your packet. But what's most exciting about this is we already have our keynote speakers lined up for the fall, and we're thrilled with the people that we have chosen. We are going to have Dr. Chris Penny, who's going to be speaking. The title of his message is "The Mouse is Dead. Welcome to the Post-PC Era." And I think from the title, you can gather that he's going to be addressing the topic of technology. Our second keynote speaker is Dr. Joanne Cashman, who is going to be talking about collaboration, referring to or going back to the purpose of our fall conference, the theme, cultivating common ground, collaborating for excellence. Dr. Joanne Cashman's address will be communities of practice, leading by convening. And again, we're excited, very excited about both of our keynote speakers. Also, I want to remind those of you who are on the TEA Planning Committee, we do have our final meeting today, immediately following the conference. That's from 3 to no later than 5 in room 204. So I look forward to seeing you all there. And again, have a great day. I'm turning it over to President-elect Dr. Jane Bray.
Good morning. Welcome everyone to our spring conference. I'm so thrilled to see this room filled. I think we actually may have to bring a few more chairs in, and I have to tell you, that's a great feeling. So welcome to everyone. I'd like to know, just by a show of hands, who of those of you are here have attended one of the spring conferences before? Great, welcome. Thank you all for coming and for coming back again. Who's new? Tremendous. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you will enjoy today's session and also come back again for multiple times in our spring conferences. Let me take a few opportunities to thank a few people because I know at the end of the day today we'll run out of some time. And first and foremost, I want to thank those from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. I know that you're sitting in different rows today, but I want to share with everyone that we've had a great opportunity, a truly great opportunity to collaborate on today's session, which is so extremely critical, not only for the Pennsylvania Department of Education and those folks, but for those of us in teacher education and what we do every single day with our student teachers. And so PDE, I want to thank you, not only for today, for also some of the conference calls that occurred and didn't occur as well. So a few we missed along the way, but We really appreciate all of your input and all of the feedback and your collaboration here today. So I really want to take this opportunity to thank all of you. Would you join me, please, in thanking those from PDE? I'm not going to name also the members of the committee. If you look in your program, you'll see those who have worked tirelessly to bring this to you today, to have a great opportunity for us to have such an important dialogue about student teaching and how to evaluate that in Pennsylvania. Our committee members also have little blue tags at the bottom of their name tag. If you have the opportunity to see one of those planning committee members, I ask that you please thank them. They really worked quite well, and this is going to be a great day because of their work. And then finally, I want to say thank you. I know she won't come in, but without Linda Cook for PAC-TE, there would be no way that any of us could pull off this conference. And so join me in thanking Linda. I know she can hear this. So let me take a moment and just share a little bit about the format, and then I'm going to introduce our keynote. These sessions today are jam-packed. We're going to be moving you quickly from one session to another session to lunch, back to groups. It is an extremely busy day for us today, but I can't emphasize enough the importance of your voice today, each and every one of you. So while we are going to be moving you around, while our speaker is going to be giving you some time for questions and answers, and then we also may have some time, I know we will at the end of the panel, and then also your voices this afternoon. Please don't let and allow our hurried conference to keep you from bringing your ideas to the table. The Planning Committee as well as PDE all were emphatic that this is the day for your voices to be heard. Please take advantage of that. Finally, I'm also going to ask you not only to stay for our press conference, as our president said, but we do have a drawing that you do need to be present for. So please come back and share with us at the end for the drawing and winning. Let me take this opportunity then to move right into our keynote. So you have your programs there. I'm not going to reiterate and read everything about Dr. Whitaker and her accomplishments and her many degrees. I'm going to allow you to do that. But I do want to share a few things about Dr. Whitaker that I think will really help set the context of why she's here today. She, too, is totally invested in every way, shape, and form in the topic we're going to discuss today. She has devoted all of her work toward evaluating our candidates. She not only is in charge of EdTPA at Stanford, but she has published, and more importantly, she's been a faculty member, she's been a department chair, she's coming at this with our voice. And I want to share something else with you. She probably, I don't know if she'll agree with this or not, but she's an extremely humble person. So when I started my conversations with Dr. Whitaker, asking her for advice, asking her for speakers, I'm thinking that she's going to say, oh, well, I speak on this all the time because I knew she had spoken about this all the time. Our sister state in New Jersey had recommended her, and so I'm thinking it's a natural question. I'm going to get a natural answer. I had an email that was probably 2 pages long with about 5 other people on there who she was recommending and not herself. And I had to write back to her and say, how about you? And she did indeed write back and say, I would be honored and delighted. So in addition to all of her degrees, we have a person here who's totally committed to the work that we're doing and she is as well. She is humble, and she brings us a great deal of passion and knowledge about assessing student teaching. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Andrea Whitaker.
Well, I'm going to try and use the lavalier mic, and I live in fear of the wardrobe malfunction. But I will do my best to move around the stage a little bit as we're talking, trying to keep things a little bit more animated. I know many of you have traveled a long way, and as Jane says, I am both honored and delighted to be here and to have this opportunity with you. I will say that my long flight, not quite as long as Jay described, did have its ups and downs in a few airports, and I'm experiencing just a little bit of vertigo today. So if I start to, swoon or anything, I hope someone will dash up and catch me before I fall over. But again, I am delighted to be here today and to share with you some experiences about EdTPA. And Jane was absolutely right. I spent 15 years on the faculty at San Jose State University, where I was very much involved in some of the early work with standards development for teachers in California. There's a document known as the California Standards for the Teaching Profession. Was part of a team that worked on those in the 90s. And from those standards came a very strong induction program in California known as BITSA, Beginning Teacher Support and Assessment, which is still in play. And more recently, the use of those standards and some standards for pre-service led to a requirement in California for a performance-based assessment of teaching as a summative assessment and as part of the program review metrics. And the state contracted with a testing company and developed an assessment, and there were a number of us who took a look at it and said, we don't think that quite does it. And Linda Darling-Hammond was among the group who said, we're thinking that's not going to work. So we sat around the table, and with support from Linda Darling-Hammond and Ray Pashone, a consortium was formed, and the Performance Assessment of California Teachers, or PAC-TE, was developed. And about 33 of the campuses in California have been using PAC-TE now since about 2004-05. And there was a lot of interest in PAC-TE, and from that came the development of EdTPA, now ready to be launched as a nationally available assessment of teaching performance for our earliest beginners in pre-service programs. So that's just a little bit of backdrop. What I'm going to do today, and how many of you in the room have seen me present at CAPE or at AACTE or somewhere else around the country? Just raise your hands if, okay. So you're going to see some similar slides that I've used before, and you're going to see some new ones, and you're going to see a new structure. For the first time ever, I'm organizing my talk around a top 10 list. How many of you watch David Letterman? Okay. Well, David Letterman always starts with number 10 and moves up to 1. I'm going to be a little bit more linear sequential. I'm going to go from 1 to 10. But I'm using the top 10 list as a way to help me and to help you think about the top 10 most important things to know about EdTPA. And they also touch on the top 10 kinds of questions that we often get asked when we're talking about EdTPA. And they also debunk a few of the myths that are swirling out there around EdTPA. And I'm going to try and talk for about 40 minutes. I have a lot of slides. Some I'm going to go through very quickly, but I will make the slide deck available to everyone after the meeting today. So the top 10 list could be summarized in these 4 major categories. Well, what is EdTPA anyway? What is its architecture? What is its structure? What do candidates do? Some of the items in the top 10 list are about the policy and the development context for EdTPA. Some of the topics are about how EdTPA can be used as a lever for change. And then the last topic, and this is the one that I feel most proud about when we think about EdTPA, is how valuable it can be as a tool for inquiry in teacher preparation programs. And towards the end of the talk, I have a number of examples from campuses around the country who have made significant changes in what they do as a result of having rich performance-based data that is actionable. And as part of that, I'll also talk some about how SCALE, the Stanford Center for Assessment, Learning, and Equity, partners with AACTE and with Pearson to provide implementation support, that this assessment isn't just the buy it off the shelf and plug it in. This assessment, notice I'm saying the A word and not the T word, this assessment is intended to be educative, that the users of this assessment learn something about their practice while using it. And in order for it to have that goal, or to fulfill that goal, there needs to be some support for implementation. So it's not merely, here, buy this test. It's think about this assessment and what it means for you in your program as a teacher educator and for your candidates. It's a lofty goal. So what is EdTPA? In its elevator description, it is a student-centered, subject-specific, multiple measure assessment of teaching, and we've designed it to be educative so people learn from it, and that the outcomes we measure are predictive of a teacher's future performance associated with supporting student learning. We've designed this assessment to be scalable and nationally available. Scalable and nationally available. Not something tailored to a particular state, but an assessment that can be widely shared to promote some common understandings and conversation in the teacher preparation world to support some common outcomes about what we believe are best practices for beginning teachers. We hope that the assessment provides evidence of teaching quality about a candidate's readiness to teach, and that the use of the data, the candidate's actual performance, not merely scores, supports preparation program renewal, and can provide policymakers with information about teaching quality that they need to have for their decision making. So topic number one is the lineage of EdTPA. And EdTPA has had a long history in development. It didn't just fall from the sky fully formed, or it wasn't just a few individuals at Stanford or Pearson cooking it up. It goes back to the national board. Linda Darling-Hammond and Ray Pachon were involved in the national board at its earliest inception, and they designed a portfolio-based assessment that used artifacts and commentaries describing a teacher's real practice, not merely a set of tests for them to take. So from the national board, the in-task portfolio was developed. There was also a portfolio induction, a portfolio to be used for induction in Connecticut that was known as the Connecticut Best Portfolio, and then the performance assessment for California teachers in California. And all along the way, Linda and Ray have convened, at this point now with EdTPA, thousands of teacher educators and P-12 teachers who served on design teams and provide input and counsel and good ideas. We've had national board teachers, subject matter organization representatives, teacher educators from all around the country. And I can say a little bit more about this development work and some of the statistics in my number 2 in the top 2 list. So we have had partners along the way. I want to tip my hat to AACTE. Without Sharon Robinson and her staff, we would not have been able to get EdTPA off the ground. AACTE supports us with project management and also with communication around the country. Stanford is fully responsible for the development work and some of the technical reliability and validity studies, as well as implementation support design. And I'm going to say a little bit more about all of those as we move along. The Chief State School Officers Organization was a partner with some policy development support until the time that Stanford signed an agreement with Pearson as an operational partner. And I'm going to say more about the relationship with Pearson in top 10 list number 3. Okay, but let's go on to top 10 list number 2. EdTPA has been developed by the profession for the profession. And this connects with my opening comment about the work that we were doing in California. This work has a lineage that has come from the field. And why is that? Well, Linda Darling-Hammond often speaks about the building blocks of a profession. And this comes from the work of Lee Shulman originally, who did significant research on how medicine became to be acknowledged as a profession. We're not quite there yet in education, but Linda and Lee have articulated this list as what's necessary for a profession to be recognized. First and foremost is the ethical and moral commitment to all students. Just as doctors have the Hippocratic oath to do no harm, all teachers come to the field with that ethical and moral commitment. In order for education to be a profession, we need to have an agreed upon knowledge base or a set of knowledge and skills that people will say, yes, this is what good teaching is. And within those, or to describe those and define them and to communicate them, we need to be clear about a set of standards of practice. How good is good enough within that knowledge base? And lastly, once there are standards that are defined and communicated, there needs to be some very clearly defined professional certification of that effective practice that will enforce and provide information that people are ready to teach and are ready to continue teaching. So EdTPA is an example of an assessment that helps us in defining our profession. There's a clear knowledge base of what we're attempting to assess. We have clear standards of practice, how good is good enough, and the assessment can be used by educators for state licensure or for state or national accreditation. So who's been involved? This is just the numbers page, and it's a lot of numbers. I'll say a few, when I get to well, I guess it's this item. Actually it's this. When I get to my milestones about how we've evolved the work over the last 4 years, you'll see how these numbers come into play. We've had numerous rounds of field testing. We've had content validation review. We have trained now, that number 500 is low. We're probably up to 700 scorers who've had official training. And just to skip to the bottom, we have an online social networking platform known as TPAC Online that now has over 4,000 members from 29 states, and at last count, 437 campuses that are engaged in some way with EdTPA. States involvement. This map, and see Pennsylvania right there? Right between the red, New York, and the blue, Ohio, right there in a soft gray color. This map represents states and where they are in policy and who's been involved in the various rounds of field testing. Any state indicated in red has policy right now requiring EdTPA for candidates beginning as early as fall 2014, or excuse me, spring 2014. We like to talk about your neighbor New York as the last to the party and the first on the dance floor with the quickest implementation rate. I don't recommend it. Where's Teresa? I don't recommend it. An 18-month between announcement and full policy requirement. But Minnesota, Tennessee, Washington all have policy on the books, and candidates are using EdTPA consequentially.